is an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, serving up the hottest sports takes from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
Welcome back to yet another edition of At the Office, the East Bank Sports Show. Here with my two boys, as we always are. Erik, John, say what's up to everybody.
What's going on, buddy? Looking forward to a show tonight.
John, how we doing?
Yo, I'm doing well. Got vacation coming up next week, so I'm looking forward to it.
Hell yeah, man. I'm happy for you. I'm excited to get into everything today, man. It's been a fun couple of weeks in sports. You know, the Guardians are doing great. We got some, off the wall, less hot button topics in terms of local Cleveland media and sports and stuff. Obviously, mandatory minicamp is under the way and all of that. That's more for the East Bank Sports Show and the Fanatical Elves Show. So make sure you go check those out as well as everyone else on the Fanatical Elves. We are a proud member of the Fans First Sports Network, and we are really happy to be able to bring you this at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday. I almost said Thursday. And for everybody watching at home or listening at home, make sure you hit that download button. It helps us out a ton. Make sure you add the Fanatical Elves stream on Spotify, Apple Music, Odyssey, wherever else you're listening to your podcasts. Make sure you hit that plus button so you're notified every time we come out with a new episode. Guys, it has become my favorite topic, my favorite segment on our show, 30-second takes. And, I was thinking about the take that we were doing earlier that we had planned, and I'm kind of over it because I have something more important to talk about, okay? So, John, I'm going to let you start us. This is off the cuff. I'm sorry. I want you to go in to why Mustard the mascot is overrated, because he has won 23 races in a row, and I'm over it. John, go ahead. Tell the people why he is the most overrated hot dog in all of sports.
I don't even know what we're doing, but I don't need 30 seconds. Is he overrated? No, he wins a lot. What I need from you, Noah, is for you to move on and get over it. So much hot dog talk. Joey Chestnut's not going to be slamming dogs this year. That's the hot dog story. We don't need to talk about Mustard. You can have your friend back.
Erik, tell me why he's overrated. Please take my side because it's so true. Go ahead.
I don't want to spend 30 seconds on this, so I'm going to talk about something else.
Back to Mustard. Anyway, I muted Erik, so we're off of that. Mustard is the most overrated mascot.
This is not how
of
this
all
section
time.
works.
Yes, it is. 100%. Go ahead with whatever your take is.
Actually, I really didn't have anything else besides the fact that I'm a ketchup fan. I've always been a ketchup fan. I think it's because I don't like mustard and onion on my hot dogs. That said, I'm about to order a mustard jersey if such a thing exists. If not, I'll have it made because I'm just sick of hearing about this damn topic.
We got to some good stuff though, because I go mustard and onions only. So the fact that you don't like either is a little bit spicy.
Hey, all
fair.
I know is Mustard would have my favor. And I'm not going to put the timer up because I'll just be quick with it. Mustard would have my favor if he was real mustard. He's not stadium mustard, and he needs PED tested. That's all in my opinion. But we'll go into our real topics now. I'm sorry I had to do that. I needed to get off my chest because we didn't talk about it on the regular edition of the East Bank Sports Show. No, we haven't talked about it enough. Not until Ketchup wins one. Let's go into our main topic, our title topic of the day. Guys, I asked the question, who is your favorite non-Cleveland sports team in history? So basically, anybody not Cleveland or Ohio related, who's your favorite team in history that, an era of teams that you like? Maybe there's another franchise in general that's like your number two, or another college, I guess you could go that route as well. Erik, you go ahead, man. You start us off.
Yeah, so, you could look at this a few different ways. We had talked a little bit about the obvious answer. Non-Cleveland sports team would have been one of the two Buckeye national championship years, but then you excluded them and all of Ohio as well. For me, I'm a massive Chelsea fan. I wanted to represent today wearing Cech's jersey. So it would be one of their two Champions Leagues for me, particularly 2012. That was an insane team with some of all-time favorite players on it. But I did want to keep it more American sports since nobody wants to listen to me prattle on about Chelsea, which I could for the entire length of the show. So for me, here's the hot take of the day. I don't even need one later. It would be the 2009 New York Yankees. Now let me explain.
I knew it. Here we go.
First of all, Noah's too young to understand why there's hate for the Yankees. There's hate for the Yankees because they win. That's all they've done throughout their history. For me, growing up as a baseball fan in general, I won't lie to you guys, I was a bit of a Yankees fan. I've learned my ways over the years. The only things I have left that are Yankees related are hats, which I was going to wear tonight. And then I found this nice Scrappers hat I forgot about. So
I was going to shout that out because that's a
Oh.
beautiful hat. I love minor league baseball hats. Continue with your take.
Yeah, so I have a hat collection like Noah has a shoe collection. So I was just going through them all. And typically when I visit a stadium, I like to grab a new hat from that stadium. The exception being Pittsburgh. I realized I don't have a Pirates hat. Maybe I just couldn't bring myself to buy those colors. I digress. The 2009 New York Yankees, I was in college at the time. I was still kind of a Yankees fan. I'd been to Yankee Stadium, both old and new. For me, it's the history. That's what led me to be a Yankees fan. Mickey Mantle's one of my all-time favorite baseball players. Obviously, I didn't watch him live. Murderers Row in 27. I mean, there's just such history. And history and baseball are so intertwined together. If you ever get the chance, watch the documentary called Baseball. It's Ken Burns' documentary. It's fantastic. Everybody should watch that. So it comes from a love of the sport and then a collection of some of my favorite players. So that 2009 season had guys like, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez. Before all his drama, Robinson Cano was one of my all-time favorite players at second base. You had great pitching. Mo Rivera is a Hall of Famer. CC Sabathia was there. Nick Swisher in his bro days before he moved on. The Gardner story, who ended up being a longtime Yankee, obviously. There's so much historical impact there. And it's also the last time they won a World Series. They have not won one since 2009, which is a little insane to think about, especially with all the money that they have and that they spend. But they had guys back then that you could root for, that you kind of liked. It was still a machine, but today it feels a little different. And maybe it's just my perspectives change, but today it feels like there's such a, just bought and paid for collection that nobody really likes. One final note on the New York Yankees, and then we can stop talking about them. It's always weird to me, guys that play for the Yankees, they could be from California, but when they get in a New York uniform, do they not look and sound like New Yorkers for some reason? I don't know what it is, but as soon as they're in pinstripes, they all seem like they're from Brooklyn and they've been playing there their entire lives.
All right, I'm sick of hearing about the Yankees. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they all look alike because this is still the only franchise where you have to shave to play for them, I think.
Cut your hair, yeah.
I remember Johnny Damon cutting his beard off. My favorite Yankee is Chuck Knobloch. Watching him hit his mom with the baseball was pretty fun when he got the yips that one year. But no, to answer your question, so I went on a journey. Come along on the journey with me. My first answer was, where do I have allegiance to people outside of Cleveland? So I started thinking of the Dream Team, massively impactful in my life. But it felt too easy because Cleveland's still in the United States. I wouldn't call it a Cleveland team per se, but it felt like an easy way out. Obviously, the Buckeyes, I consider them a Cleveland team because most people in Cleveland who like college football are Buckeyes fans. Didn't want to go that route. And then I realized that most of my non-Cleveland affiliations are just stemming from hate. Hate of teams that are our rivals or love of teams that play our rivals. So I grew up in the 90s. I had a really hard time with the dynasties. I hated the Cowboys. I hated the 49ers. I hated the Yankees. Hated Duke. And I started thinking like the Mavaliers year where they beat LeBron the year after he left was pretty cool. But I don't really love the Mavericks. I just hated the Heat. The only one that sticks is the only one where I have merch. So I'm going to go with that one. When I was growing up, I could not stand the Grant Hill, Christian Laettner, Coach K, Duke, Blue Devils. I got so sick about hearing about them on a regular basis that I just decided I was going to be a North Carolina fan. I said, who hates Duke as much as me? It's North Carolina fans. Not too long later, they started winning some national championships again. They've always kind of been on that cycle, but that Rashad McCants, Sean May, Felton team was pretty cool. And since when I went to my closet to find the only piece of merchandise that I have that's non-Cleveland sports related, and it is this North Carolina Tar Heels jersey, I'm going to have to go with the Tar Heels as being my favorite non-Cleveland sports team.
Wait, was that Jordan, or am I seeing that backwards? It looked like 32.
It is 32. It's not Jordan. I got this on Facebook Marketplace. It's like $100 jersey. Some dude was selling it for $50, and I have a buddy who's a Duke fan and needed something to wear, so I picked it up. I believe this was a Sean May jersey. When he was the center, but no, it's not the Jordan. It's Sean May. But yeah, if you flash it fast enough, the 23-32 thing can flip on you.
So here's the thing. I hate both Duke and North Carolina, and the reason I hate both is that I feel like Ohio is the epicenter of you're either Duke or you're North Carolina, and everybody in the state has picked one of those two teams as a secondary basketball team, and it's always the same thing. I hated Duke, so I'm a North Carolina fan, and now I just hate both because I hear that so much. It's like the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like liking Duke. Not that I can talk. I just defended the New York Yankees, but
right. You're gonna tell me you're a Syracuse fan because that's one powerful team that it's not in there. You know, like Kansas or Kentucky or something. I do want to give a shout out though. Oh, UConn's a good one. I don't have anything against UConn.
My girl Paige, they're winning it this year.
Tough to argue. I think the men are going to win it again too. Three-peat.
And with what's his name coming back?
Heck yeah!
And the coach not going to the Lakers. I mean, yeah, they're poised. They got a target though, which makes it tough.
I do want to add one last thing though that usually pisses Noah off, but I'm going to say it anyway. I didn't have the merchandise, so I went with North Carolina. My mom's from Cincinnati. I have owned Bengals gear in the past. I was raised in a divided household. The Browns won out, but the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cincinnati Reds are two teams that have a special place in my heart. The 1990 World Series team, Barry Larkin was one of my favorite players of all time. So I still pull for the Reds in the National League, even though they've fallen on some tough times here as of late.
I was honestly expecting that take from you. The North Carolina shocked me a little bit.
If I could have a North Carolina championship, I would take that over a Reds World Series. So I went with North Carolina, but I would be happy if the Reds could pull it out. I'm not – even the Bengals, I was rooting for them in the Super Bowl. I sure shit didn't want them to lose.
Same.
For my mom, if nothing else. But I do have the Boomer Esiason, Achilles Smith, Jeff Blake moving into Carson Palmer. I mean, they had a run there where they were more fun to watch than the Browns. That's for sure.
I noticed how you don't include Andy Dalton. Weird.
Yeah.
Anyway,
never did it for me.
Anyway, real quick, I do want to throw out there that North Carolina is probably my second college by default because Carolina blue is my favorite color. So I went the full blown. Yeah, I agree.
Everybody in Ohio.
I was laughing when you said that. Jersey's beautiful. Best color in the game. So I went a little bit different route. You went college. You went baseball. Shocker. Noah went football here. My pick is the Legion of Boom Seattle Seahawks.
LOB.
That LOB defined an era of football for me where, you know, I was, not to date you guys, here we go. I'm going to date you guys on an episode. I was in middle school. Highlighter green was the greatest color ever known to man to match with your high Nike Elite socks and your Marshawn Lynch jersey. And all of my friends in school loved the Seattle Seahawks during this time. I literally made, you know how Nike ID is the thing, you know, where you get to put your colors on the shoe. Me and my best friend were this close to ordering green and navy blue with gold bottom cleats like Marshawn Lynch because our school was Navy, so they would match. We were all the way in. I mean, that's probably the most fun I've ever had watching a Super Bowl was the against the Denver Broncos, and then the following year against the Patriots, where they almost won and lost. I really connected with those teams. Not a Michael Crabtree guy, unfortunately, because of those teams. But yeah, that team, man, got me into football in a different way than I already was. Obviously, I was a Browns fan and paid attention, and I was playing football at this point. But in terms of fandom and getting into it on a playoff level and being excited to see that for the Browns, formative for sure. Formative would be the best way to put that.
The only thing
I didn't. Pete Carroll's a shitbag to me for what he did at USC, but I still like the Seahawks. By the way, side note, one of the greatest interview clips ever. I think it was Erin Andrews. I can't remember, but she's all ready to interview Richard Sherman. She's got her mic. This is going to be her moment. And she puts the mic in his face, and Richard Sherman just goes off. And she goes, there goes my shot.
Right. That was I remember watching that live.
Yeah, me too. Who was talking about you? Don't ever put a sorry ass receipt. Oh man, it's great.
The only thing I can ever think of with that team, and I kind of like Seattle too because I have family there, so they've always kind of been a second NFL team for me. But run the damn ball. You had 3 downs to do it, and I actually love that play call. It was executed poorly. Honestly, Russ needs to move out of the pocket, throw nothing across the middle, and if it's not there, just throw it away. I don't hate that, but come on, man.
I have a question just to keep it on topic since we get a good amount of time real quick. First question, name one player in the formative, of this kind of question, one player that sticks out to you. It doesn't have to be from the team you mentioned because, Erik, you kind of mentioned Jeter and all those players. Name one player because I have one that I could shout out that doesn't relate to the Seahawks at all. But go ahead, John, if you have one, or Erik, whoever wants to go first, if you have one off the top of your head.
Yeah, it didn't end well, and I hated to see it. But if there's one thing Americans love, it's a setback and a comeback. The entire Mike Vick story and his redemption and who he's become after the downfall from grace and the type of player he was in Atlanta. You talk about must-see TV. Mike Vick might be the one most electric player like in the history of almost all sports. I mean, shout out to Jordan and Bo Jackson and all these. He was, when Mike Vick took that team to the NFC Championship against the Eagles and was just dicing people up, rushing for 200, throwing for 400. That's as good as it gets, man. I would say Mike Vick for me.
Didn't they lose that game, though? Didn't the Eagles go on to then lose to the Patriots? Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure I got my history right.
No, they never won a Super Bowl with. I actually had a bet with my dad that they would win a Super Bowl with Mike Vick, and then he got popped that summer, and I was like, well, let's call it a push.
Erik, go ahead, man.
It didn't pop into my head until John was going and was saying one of the greatest athletes of all time. And for me, so at first I was going to do a cop out and say Tom Brady. I mean, he was unbelievable to watch. Those teams were unbelievable. If he had gone 19-0 and didn't lose that Super Bowl against the Giants, unbelievable team, right? And then teams like Steph Curry, same thing. Obviously, they lost to the Cavs, so that season was a little irrelevant. But as John was going, the player for me has to be Michael Phelps. Talk about the most dominant of all time and must-see TV. I mean, when he was swimming, we were tuning in to primetime. They were scheduling everything to American Eastern Standard primetime, regardless of where they were, because he was that dominant. I don't think I've ever seen a player where all things being equal, obviously something like the Patriots, you have a team, whatever. But when it's an individual sport and all things are equal for the most part, that man, I mean, and you know what? I will shout out at the same time. Sorry, I'm going to do two. The gymnast that now the name just completely popped out of my head, who's going back for another Olympics. Help me out. I can picture her face. Current gymnast. Gabby Douglas. No,
Simone Biles.
Simone Biles. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that just evaporated.
You put me on the spot, and I just completely was like, "Yep, nope, no clue." Yeah.
I don't want to get. You should have said black gymnast. It's okay. I would have thought about it right away, but I was like, shit, I don't know. Maybe he's a Michaela Maroney fan. I don't know what's going on.
No, I mean, again, though, we're talking the best of all time. Simone Biles is just far and above everyone else. And people like to point to her freezing up, getting the yips, which, yeah, that was such a disappointment. Don't get me wrong. But what she's done before and after that is nothing short of incredible. Mind you, this is a career that normally lasts one summer for Olympians, and she's now stretched it into 3 different Olympics. She is at the top of her game as well, and maybe the second greatest Olympian behind Michael Phelps.
Yeah. So my answer is going to date you again, and I'm sorry. I'm not trying to. I'm not doing it to be mean this time. When I think back when I was younger, right, and my first sport I played wasn't football. My first sport I played was actually baseball, then soccer, then basketball. Then I finished and played football until I couldn't play football anymore. When football became such a big deal to me as a person, right? There's one name synonymous with that era, regardless of if it's college or if it's NFL. To me, Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow from 2007 to 2009, and then his campaign with Denver as well. I mean, you're talking about a kid, me, who's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, growing up around football. And, his family's getting him into it. His friends are all getting him into it. I mean, I remember Tebow goes out on the field, and me and my friends from high school, I mean, they were the same kids at the same time. So my friends at the time, we were all Tebowing until he took the field and took the snap, praying that he did really well. That's how much of a grasp that guy had on us as like the face of football. So I just wanted to shout out Tim Tebow a little bit. That's one that's like really important to me. Obviously, Joe Thomas as a guy that played offensive line his whole life.
There's another one too with the.
Go ahead.
To talk, I'm hoping we get to Olympics at some point too, because they're coming up here. But Usain Bolt was nasty. Michael Johnson was nasty. Another one for me in the '90s, the U.S. women gymnastics with it. Now I'm going to date myself in the other direction, but Dominique Moceanu, Dominique Dawes, Carrie Strug, Shannon Miller. They went on a run in the '90s too that was really fun to watch when I was 5 to 10, 5 to 15 years old, depending on how you look at it, where you start.
That's fantastic.
I do got to say, Noah, that, I'm really questioning your Ohio State fandom, because as much as I loved Tebow beating the Steelers, anybody that, and maybe it's too young for you, but anybody that could name a Florida Gator and say that I like that guy, especially after 2007, I can't. I mean, it took Urban winning a national championship for me to like him. And he's an Ohio guy, but to say Tebow, I don't know, man.
I stopped hating the Florida Gators literally last year for the first time since then, just because that Urban Meyer Florida team pissed me off so bad as a Buckeyes fan.
Well, I'll raise you this though, because you guys both know this, and I'm not going to go into specific details, but I have a close family connection with Urban Meyer, so I feel like I get the cop out there a little bit.
Well, Bowling Green or Utah, don't go with Florida.
Right. Well, when Florida was Florida, I was also 5, 6, 7, and we could get into that in the after show when I'm not giving up way too much personal information. You know what I mean? But
no one knows the mistress.
No, I don't. Don't put that on
clear
me.
To me.
Do not put that on me.
He's like, my aunt was the one sitting on his lap.
No. Okay, so we're not going to do that. And instead, what we're going to do is cut to commercial break. When we get back, we're going to talk another fun topic, but I'll intro it when we're back. We will be right back. And we're back with an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, here with my boy Erik, John, doing it how we always do on Wednesday nights, afternoons, whatever you want to call this time period when we get on. We're actually shooting this early in terms of the live show right now. Typically, we go on at 9. Our schedule's opened up. We wanted to do it with some natural sun. Well, not for Erik. Erik's in the basement, but natural sunlight and, having some more of our night still ahead of us after we're done. We're going to get into another fun topic here. Erik has been pushing for this topic for a couple weeks. It was the topic that got cut last week because we went on a 45-minute to 50-minute ramble about Caitlin Clark and all the implications there. Real quick before we get into this, yay or nay that Caitlin Clark wasn't on the Olympic team? Just yay or nay, no explanation.
Wait, yay or nay in what way?
Like, does it make sense or does it not make sense that she wasn't on the Olympic team?
Honestly, you can't give a yay or nay here. It's a gray area. I think from a business standpoint, she should have been on the team. From a talent standpoint, she's a rookie. She doesn't need to be on that team.
I agree. John?
+1 or +2. Nay from a marketing perspective. Yay that she's played like 8 games in the WNBA.
Fair enough. And I mean, I agree, so I won't dive into it anymore. Back to our topic, though. Would you rather have a kicker who is 100% accurate from 40 yards to 55 yards out, or a running back who will get you 2 yards no matter what? You always get a +2. Let's see. John, why don't you hit it? Go ahead, man. You start us off.
This is a tricky one because my initial reaction was kicker, duh, they put points on the board. But running backs, if every time you had a 4th and 1 or 4th and inches or 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches, you knew you could get 2 yards, that would meaningfully impact the game. That said, unless it's 4th and goal from the 1 or 2 yard line, I think it comes down to a kicker more often. I mean, ask Buffalo Bills fans which they would rather have. I can tell you their answer right now. Kickers in the NFL are insanely accurate. So if we're talking, what was the yardage, Noah, inside of 45 yards?
It was
45, I think it's 40 to 55.
40 to 55, sorry.
Well, NFL kickers from 1 yard to 39 yards are pretty damn accurate anyway. They're kicking way over 90% in that, and especially if they're indoors and the weather's good. If you could say 100% all the way back, you're basically saying your kicker is going to make every kick inside of 56 yards. That is a lot more valuable. How many times do you get just over midfield and you could send a guy out there to bomb a 54-yarder and know he's going to make all of them? You could run a score up with an offense and only get 30 yards. Take the touchback with the new rules, get a couple first downs, and you can start bombing field goals and win games. Grand scheme of things, kickers put points on the board every time. Running backs don't. They can't help you ice the game. Both would be great. But I would argue that Nick Chubb is as sure a thing as you have in the NFL to picking up 2 yards every time you need 2 yards. That doesn't mean a Super Bowl win. And I think it comes down – how many games in the NFL, with overtime especially, come down to the last kick? It is a 2-point difference, and either you make it, you win, or you miss it, and you lose. You're going to win more games. You're going to put more points on the board. You're going to be happier as a fan base and a coaching staff and a team. If you got a guy who's automatic from 55 and in. So put me down for kicker.
Real quick, Erik, before you go, I want to just shout out Tim Lyons. He's one of our fans' first sports members. He's been tuning in. I appreciate having him in here, and he agrees with you. So I just wanted to give him a shout out real quick. Erik, well, go ahead, man.
Well, Tim, thank you for watching, but like John, you're wrong. So listen, when you have a running back that can get 2 yards no matter what, 100% of the time, like John alluded to, it really changes calls on 3rd and 4th down. So now, even if you're on your own 10-yard line and it's 4th and 2, you can go for it knowing that you have a first down. So that's the number one thing. But then every single touchdown that you score is now a sure thing, 2 points, 2-point conversion. You get an extra point every single time you score a touchdown. So for me, I don't know. I think that changes the game and changes how you call the game, because if you know within 3rd and 2, 4th and 2 that you have it no matter what, well, now your first down, second down calls can be drastically different than what we would normally see in a typical NFL game. I just think it gives you a little more leeway, and to get an extra point every single time you score, I'm taking that, because 40 to 55 yards, don't get me wrong, I like those points, but I don't know. It really, teams are trying to score touchdowns more than anything. And how often do you get within that range? You're attempting a field goal anyway. These days, most NFL kickers should be pretty solid from 40 to 50. 55 starting to push it a little bit. But when you got guys like Justin Tucker that are he used to nail 65-yarders, 40 to 55 is just not that impressive in modern football. And it's one of the reasons I argued against kicking should change a little bit in how we do it. But they hit bombs these days, whereas a guaranteed 2 yards, don't get me wrong, Nick Chubb, he's probably getting you the 2 yards, but now it's no question. I think it just changes how you call that game.
Yeah, so I was going to be very hard disagreeing with Erik here and be on John's side and Tim's side, shouting out Tim again in the comments. But, as Erik was talking and I was listening to his argument, something came to mind here that, I'm throwing in as a caveat here, right? And maybe it's the offensive lineman in me. But to guarantee 2 yards from a running back, that's not a one player type of thing, right? Like there's 5 guys in front of that running back that needs to guarantee you the 2 yards. If that's true, then that means your offensive line is pretty damn good. I'm just doing deductive reasoning here. So you're getting 6 quality players potentially, or 4 and an average lineman or whatever, versus 1 kicker when, we rotate kickers, every season. Sometimes it feels like in Cleveland, but, shout out Dustin Hopkins. That being said, obviously we're looking at 1 player versus 1 player. I just wanted to throw my caveat thought. If that's the case, then 100% running back. 40 to 55 yards out, though, basically anytime you're in the opponent's territory, you're guaranteeing you're guaranteeing points. I can't really disagree or, go against the idea of having 3 points guaranteed on the board, no matter if you make a 20-yard gain or what if you get the ball at the 50? All you got to do is run it 3 times and kick the field goal and you're getting points no matter what. And that's, off of a turnover or whatever. So I'm going kicker here. I feel like you have to. I feel like most teams would probably go kicker because it's guaranteed points from a larger distance. But then I also think, too, you think about, they should have just ran the damn ball in that Super Bowl, talking about the Seahawks, if you were listening before the commercial break. You're guaranteeing yourself 2 yards there. You have 3 downs, you win the Super Bowl. So, it's neither here nor there. I
do want to throw. I got to throw. I didn't go as far as Erik and print it out with the Caitlin Clark discussion, but I did do some research and have some stats to back up my take. But I wanted to see what you two said first.
Go ahead.
First one that I think matters is in each of the last 3 seasons, there has been a headline like the NFL games record number end on game-winning field goals. I know it happened in 23 and 21. I think it happened in 22 as well. Just in 1 week, 5 games came down to a field goal. The other is some research that I did from a betting and gambling perspective, and that's that almost 20%, the most common point differential for NFL games is 3. And almost 20% of NFL games end with a field goal or less of differential.
You just made my point for me, buddy.
How?
If you score an extra point with a 2-point conversion every time, then you are making a bigger margin.
No.
A 2-point conversion.
Point. Yeah, I mean,
think about it, though. You get 1 extra point every single time you score. Yeah. So if you take the average number of touchdowns scored in a game, add the 1 extra point per each touchdown, then you're outside of that 3-point mark.
But Erik,
you're also assuming that you score a touchdown every time. I mean, some of these
games, every time. I'm saying every time you do.
There's a flaw in all of this logic. The 2-point conversion line is 3 yards out.
I was going to say that too. That was going to be my next point, Noah.
So you're like, even if
yes.
I just double checked myself because
here's how I know the
90% positive it was 3 in the NFL.
The 2-point line back in the day, I think it was the same spot. So you add 7 for the snap and 10 for the end zone, and I think that's what made an extra point 20 yards. So
that's dumb.
No, it's just how it works. So you wouldn't get all.
I might be kicker now. I might be on kicker.
And it's also rare that this happens. But if the game is 9-6 on field goals and nobody scores a touchdown, your point is also moot. Because if you never score a touchdown, you never have a chance to go for 2.
Well, yeah, but if you never get to 50, you don't get a chance to kick a field goal. That's flawed logic.
No, it's not. Not with your 2-point conversion.
Well, now that I know it's from the 3-yard line.
You're saying just score a touchdown and go for
things.
2, and I'm saying there are games where people don't score touchdowns.
I mean,
I swear to God, though, I Googled this before because my dad said the same thing. He goes, well, it's from the 3-yard line. And I go, okay, I'll Google it. And Google let me down. Google's new AI features are shit. Let me just say that for the record.
Should ask ChatGPT.
You know, like how I said that I just Googled it to check. The AI generation said 3-yard line for me. So maybe it just wanted you to sound wrong on live. The other thing I want to point out too on this topic is, you know, the 2 yards are great, but even if you go 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, 2 yards, it's still 8 yards and you're not getting a first down. I get that it, you know, null and voids it a little bit, so you have to do other things on offense, but I'm still taking the for sure points as opposed to the 2 yards. That's just
Did it used to be on the 2-yard line?
Maybe. Maybe it's 2-yard line in college. I have no idea. But I thought it was the 3-yard line also.
All right, I'm with kicker now.
I'm taking this as a win. We knocked Erik totally off his point. Changed his mind. He already came around to our side. It's only been
That's not often you get a win, so take it, fellas.
Love it. Well, I feel that we are very much at the end of this topic, so let's go in to our final non-hot take topic of the day.
They moved it in 2015.
Gotcha. Let's move into the topic of, should the MLB get rid of the designated hitter? And I think this one could be a little interesting because of the dynamics. You guys are both baseball guys, even more than I am. Erik, go ahead. Should the MLB get rid of the designated hitter?
So I'm going to answer this in a way that is a little different because I'm going to say yes and no. Thank you, Tim. Yes, I was wrong. I get it. Yes, we can get rid of the designated hitter in the National League, but keep it in the American League like it used to be. So, first of all, I'm a fan of both ways, honestly. The moments when pitchers get that strategic hit, which is few and far between, I'll say, are such fond memories in the big games that they happen, but they don't happen enough. From a head standpoint, using my head, you know, to sell tickets, we want to see home runs. We want to see hitting. We want to see that DH role, I think. I was a pitcher, so I tend to side with pitching and like a good pitching duel. But I like that there was a difference between the two leagues. And then when you get to the World Series, depending on whose stadium you're in, you have to follow those rules. I really enjoyed that in the same way that we've talked about it before. I enjoyed the All-Star game dictating who got home field advantage. So I'd kind of like to see it go back to what it was. If you're a traditionalist, then you want pitchers hitting, right? If you like the modern game and you want to see more hitting, more action, then you keep the designated hitter. So I'm kind of split. I don't really know. You guys convince me since I'm just off today, apparently.
Go ahead, John.
I'll convince you because I think you did something that's not easily done, which is mix 2 bad takes into one.
Oh, God.
Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Please.
First and foremost, before I get into why you're wrong from an opinion perspective, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. When you add...
Real quick, John, just while you go in your take, I'm going to leave this on the screen. Thank you, Tim, for saying we can all say, no, Erik, you're wrong.
E-R-I-K. Literally in my name on the screen.
The first thing is the facts. First is that people pay for offense, tickets, everything else. They come to see the long ball. We want more runs scored. We're entering sort of a dead ball era. After the steroid era, where scoring is down and the league needs runs. Also, the MLB Players Union gets extra roster spots for carrying designated hitters. So for you to eliminate the designated hitter, you would be eliminating jobs in the MLB for 30 or so starters and I think 60 with total roster spots. So there's a 0% chance we're going back because it makes too much sense financially, and the MLBPA is never going to support something that eliminates jobs in Major League Baseball. So I think it's here to stay. Now, that said, why do I think your take was bad? The only thing worse than taking offense out of the game to put everybody back and have pitchers hit is going back to split the league into playing 2 different games. As a baseball purist, you know that a pitcher hitting is more than just the 9th spot in the lineup. It changes how you switch. It changes your roster management. It changes how you manage a game. They literally played 2 different games for like 100 years before they finally figured it out. I was the opposite. As an American League guy with the Guardians as my number 1 team, watching our pitchers hit for the first time all season in the World Series is a nightmare. I didn't like it. I didn't think it added anything. I thought it was frustrating and boring. I know there's a lot of nuance that goes into management of the game, but I just don't agree that it should come back. I was looking at some stats just to prepare for this, and you look at even the best teams in the league who are scoring a ton of runs, the Guardians, the Yankees, the teams like that. There are entire rosters that have 0 or 1 person hitting over 300 right now. You're going to take a pitcher who's batting 97 and stick him at the end of the lineup every night? I just think it's bad for baseball. Different story in the 90s when you had a ton of hitting and everybody was hitting 275 to 335. I mean, I pulled up the Guardians and it's like Quan and Fry and everybody else is like 270 is solid. Even the Yankees, they got 2 or 3 starters hitting like 312, 308, and everybody else is hitting 200. I think you could destroy the little bit of momentum that we have with scoring runs and some of the stuff we did with speeding up the game, bigger bases, more steals. By giving up and out every 3rd time through the order.
So why don't we teach the pitchers to hit then? I mean, these are professional athletes we're talking about. Noah's favorite player can't hit either.
No, that's like saying let's teach Shaq to shoot free throws.
He hit yesterday and walked twice. Just throwing that one out there. Anyway, real quick before we get into the debate side of this, I want to show my take, and then we can, banter back and forth and continue to say why Eric's wrong. I'm going to show a clip, as I love to do now on these shows, of known power hitter, Guardians pitcher, Ben Lively.
Quick. Lively smashes one to deep right center field. Lagares going back. It's gone!
So, with that clip, I am all in favor of pitchers hitting again because we have a known power hitter in our pitching rotation. I'm ready for some home. No, I'm just kidding. They should never bring back pitchers hitting. They should let them focus. They should let them focus on the one thing that is, their most important thing, and that's throwing the ball and getting strikeouts and winning baseball games defensively. I get what you're saying, Erik, that, they're professional athletes. They should be able to hit too. I'd rather my pitchers on the Cleveland Guardians be really good at pitching and just pitching than trying to also juggle being behind the plate and swinging at a ball.
What do you mean juggle? Have you not played baseball? I was a pitcher my entire life. I hit the whole freaking time too. Like, this is just part of the game. That whenever we got so soft that pitchers can't hit anymore, like, who doesn't love to see fat ass Bartolo Colon yanking it out of the stadium? Like, that's so much fun.
Yeah, over 162 games, it happens twice. So if you love seeing it, that's the sacrifice you play. You have 160 games from swinging at awful pitches and striking out all the time, or not even really attempting to. They used to go up with coats on, for God's sake. They didn't even have on the uniform in the National League. They'd be wearing windbreakers just to keep their arms warm and pretending they're going to bunt. Like, it's not like they're up there digging in and trying to get a good at bat most of the time either. They were just giving themselves up.
They should be. That's my point.
I don't know, man. I don't disagree that pitchers shouldn't be pulled out and you should let them hit if they can hit. But I think you get to a point where you're a specialist. You wouldn't say, hey, if you're a football player, you should just be an athlete. Why don't we have the offensive lineman play wide receiver? Like, you have a specialty, you learn it, and that's what makes you a pro.
I get what you're saying. I mean, listen, if I'm building a lineup for my own team, obviously I want my team to have a DH spot and have a better hitter in there. I just like the traditional aspect. Here's the thing. You can't argue against tradition because as many as your facts and points are valid, it's tradition. It's the same way the Catholic Church gets away with shit because they go, it's a cool tradition. And when you walk in, you feel good, don't you? I don't know. The traditionalist baseball fan in me likes it.
I think as a human race, the times we get ourselves into the most trouble is when we use the 4 words because we always have. That is the worst reason ever to do anything. And I think that if you think about it and analyze it and you think you're doing the best thing and you want to keep doing it, fine. But because we always have doesn't fly with me as a reason to do anything, let alone to let pitchers start hitting again.
Well, here's my thing, though, too. I think Eric's defense of, well, it's kind of fun to see the pitchers hit and try to go for it. I agree with that. I'm not going to disagree with that. It's fun to see that. It's fun to try to see, whatever pitcher you want throw that's playing, go up there and try to hit the ball. It'll never happen again for all the reasons that John has basically said with the MLBPA and countless other things. The game's way more entertaining. And just because we used to do it and it's a fond memory for some, I guess, I'm still just a fan of keep it how it is. I like having the DH, even though currently in the game that the Guardians are playing right now, we've decided that Gabriel Arias is a known DHer for some reason, even though he hit his first home run this season like 2 games ago. But I digress.
Yeah. And I think a lot of things too evolve, right? Like it happens with the language of English and people and all kinds of shit. Games evolve too. One day somebody was like, let's stop kicking this ball around and throw it. And now we have football. It could have been rugby. It could have been soccer. It feels weird in the moment because we grew up seeing something, and I get your point as a baseball purist. If they do it at every other level, why can't they do it at pro? It's not like that's the bad part of the take. I just think this is the next natural step in evolution of the game. And I can tell you this, I feel way more strongly that we can never go back to the AL and NL playing different games than I do about either of these. Give me a pitcher hitting, give me a DH hitting, but give it to me and all the ballparks. We cannot split AL and NL up again and start playing different games.
Let's go into our finale, our known finale here on the show. Final thoughts and takes. And I'll do you guys a favor. I won't mention mustard. I promise. I actually promise I won't mention mustard.
See, you said the word and John disappeared.
Right. I don't know what happened there. So, Eric, I'm going to let you start us off, and we'll go from there. If John pops back in, he'll get his final take. If not, we'll wrap it up with just me and you, buddy. Hold on. Let me pull the camera this way. Let's get after it. Oh, John's back. Go ahead, man.
Is he? There he is. All right. So my hot take, and I'll stick with the baseball theme because I think it specifically applies to baseball. And maybe this isn't so hot a take, but postseason stats should count towards career totals. So, for example, if Mike Trout finishes his career a few home runs behind Bonds, but had more postseason home runs, those should count and make him the home run king. I don't know why we don't count postseason totals. If you're a good enough player to be leading your team to get to the postseason, then those stats should count for you. And I'm not sure why we leave them off.
I don't disagree with you completely on that one, honestly. John, go ahead, man.
Yeah, mine is NBA related since we got game 3 tipping off here shortly. I've been railing against the Celtics since we started this podcast because I hate them and I did think they were overrated. And I made a point that I thought Tatum was going to wilt under the brightest lights, and in a lot of ways he has. His scoring average is way down. He's shooting like 30%. That said, I grossly underestimated the talent of the remaining roster. Didn't know Kristaps was going to be back. Wouldn't have changed my take, but he is a difference maker. He showed up in game 1. And Jaylen Brown is a dog. I think he's better than Tatum. He is shining in every regard. Drew Holiday and Derek White are enough that they could win this team with either Tatum or Brown not playing well. And I hadn't seen that because I don't think they were really tested in the playoffs. I'm still hoping like hell that the Mavericks can even it up and pull out an upset. I still hate the Celtics. I still think Tatum wilts under the brightest lights. But the role players, quote unquote, for the Celtics are a shit ton better than I gave them credit for. So I keep receipts when you guys screw up. I got to keep receipts when I screw up. The Celtics are probably the best team in the league. It's going to take a Herculean effort just for the Mavs to get back into the series.
I hate it.
I hate it too,
me
man.
too. I could just double back. I'll kind of give 2 hot takes real quick. I've been very bored of the NBA Finals, which makes me sad as a basketball fan. It's been very boring for me. Not much really going on, in my opinion. I've been more entertained by the WNBA. That wasn't my hot take I prepped. It's funny, Eric, that you mentioned Bo Naylor when we were talking baseball. And this isn't me going full-blown defensive mode on him. But I do think there is something to be said about keeping him up in the MLB as opposed to some people saying send him back down to AAA, figure it out, bring it back up. Bo was really good in the minors, and I'm not being a Bo fan when I say this. Bo was really good batting average wise, catching wise, home run wise, on base percentage wise, all of that. I think the best thing we can do in terms of prepping Bo Naylor's career is letting him continue in this rotation with Hedges, with Fry playing some, him playing some, and really get to tweak his game to the major league level, because I think there's an all-star or, star quality player. I won't claim the ceiling. I'll bring it down a little bit, Eric. I saw your face. I think there's a star quality catcher, a strong bat in him still. I just think it's been a very slow start, and maybe he'll pick it back up. But that's kind of my 2 cents on what's going on there. I just don't think it's time to, all right, go back to Columbus and figure it out. I think he has more opportunity learning under a guy like Hedges, learning actually in the MLB locker room as opposed to being sent back down to AAA.
Yeah, good news for your boy Bo is that even if he's batting like 180?
Yeah.
That's 70 points better than Hedges roughly. So I don't know that we have a better option. Fry
the season on fire.
Is Fry an everyday catcher though? I don't know.
Fry
every day, is that what you said?
Yeah.
No, he's not an everyday catcher. That's why I kind of like the structure of what we got going on in terms of the development of Bo. That's kind of the point of the hot take in general is let's just keep this rotation going. Let's just keep doing what we're doing right now, because there's, Bo's had good hitting games in the MLB, and he's adjusted well in terms of the framing and the positioning side of catcher. Let's just keep letting this, I don't want to call it an experiment, but this development to happen for now.
I don't disagree with you. I don't say we should hit the eject button on him, but your take, the wildest part of your take is saying that he's a future all-star. There's no indication of that so far.
I toned it down. I'm sorry. That was definitely the Bo fan and me being like, oh, he's going to be an all-star. I said start, like I'm thinking like, quality, everyday catcher at the very least. He's shown that in the minors. You would think it's in there somewhere, right? And even then, go ahead, John.
Don't think it would ever happen, but to bring some of this conversation full circle, if we had a Shohei Ohtani and we did have pitchers who could hit, couldn't you theoretically DH for our awful catchers who can't hit at the moment?
Yeah, you could.
If Shohei's in the lineup and he's hitting 310 and hitting bombs, and you got a DH to use,
I would do that.
I would too.
That's an interesting one. All right, guys. Well, that about wraps it up for the At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show. We appreciate everybody tuning in live. We appreciate everybody listening where they listen to their podcasts, whether that be Spotify, Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, wherever you may watch. Make sure you hit that download button. Like I said earlier in the episode, it helps us out a ton. And make sure you follow us on everything, whether that be our ads on the screen now, whether that be the East Bank Sports Show YouTube channel, whether that be any of the Fanatical Elves channels on X, Facebook, YouTube. It really helps us out a ton. We love to grow. We love to talk sports, Cleveland sports with like-minded individuals. Get in everybody's takes. We love being able to talk to the chat. It's been fun having a chat that's active the last couple episodes. All in all, just appreciate the support. And until next time, Cleveland, make sure you stay safe out there. Have a great week.